Hello, Poop Shoot TV. It's me, Darth Cobain 17, coming at you with more items I have completed lately. 5 more things. We'll make it quick. Space constraints, as you know. Storage, iPhones, Wi-Fi, networks. Ugh, what a time we live in. Anywho, first up is a book called Stranger Things. Darkness on the Edge of Town. Something like that. Darkness on the Edge of Town. Yeah. So this is a tie-in to, obviously, the Stranger Things TV show that is exclusive to Netflix. It takes place, I believe, sometime in the second season. I have watched the first season of the show, and then I kind of forgot about it. And then I started watching the second season recently, so I'm kind of in the middle of that right now. And it takes place, I believe, sometime during the second season, because that's when Hopper and Elle are kind of holed up in his grandpa's old cabin in the woods. And this takes place during that time. It's on Boxing Day, I believe, after Christmas, when they're in that cabin and there's snow. And Elle uncovers a box labeled Vietnam or New York or something like that, or both of them, from under the floor of the cabin. And she asks Hopper about, what do these mean? And he's like, well, that's stuff from my past. And she's like, well, tell me the story, right? So he doesn't want to tell her about Vietnam for some reason, because apparently that was some nasty shit that he got up to. But he tells her about New York. So basically it's Hopper's backstory from the, I guess, the late 1970s, after his wife and his young daughter had... originally they were from Hawkins, Indiana, but coming back from the war in Vietnam, Hopper felt like he wanted something more. He wanted to go someplace bigger and help more. So New York was a cesspool at that time. The city was underfunded. They were basically, it was a cesspool. So he wanted to go to New York and become a cop. And a New York cop, and his wife was a teacher, Diane, I think, or Diana was her name. And she was the teacher. So this is the story of Hopper after he got promoted to homicide and got a new partner named Rosario Delgado, the first female cop in his precinct. They became partners, and they began investigating what that was dubbed, I think, internally the card murders or something like that. There was a string of, I think, 3 murders, and at the scene was left a special card with a symbol on it. And so they were researching this, and eventually one day the case was taken away from them by a guy named Special Agent Gallup from some higher-up organization within the U.S. government. And, of course, the two of them were pissed. You're taking our case away, whatever. They continued to kind of work it behind the scenes. And this young punk named Leroy came to the cops looking for protection. And he had some sort of insight into these murders in a way, because he had one of the cards on him. So there was some sort of link established there, and Hopper and Delgado could not let it go. Eventually, Hopper went too far, and Special Agent Gallup kind of detained him and Leroy, and he said, you're working for me now, or your family's going to basically hit the skids. You know, you guys are going to fall into some bad luck, right? So Hopper's like, okay. So these murders tied into something to do with a new gang in the streets in New York City called the Vipers. And they had basically somehow amalgamated all of the other gangs in the city into one. And they were gearing up for something called the Day of the Serpent. And St. John was the leader of this gang. And so something was going to happen at some point in the future, in the near future. But they didn't know what, and they didn't know how to plan for it. They didn't know how to stop it. So Hopper basically goes undercover, and Leroy vouches for him, and he's led into the gang. He meets St. John. He goes through the initiation and makes it look like he's actually a bad guy, and discovers all these links between Vietnam vets and this group and a whole bunch of other stuff. And I don't want to spoil it too much, but there's some twists and turns along the way, and eventually the case is all wrapped up, and you kind of get that glimpse into Hopper's past when he was in New York before he returned to Hawkins eventually in the 80s, and before all the events of Stranger Things began to unfold. The even more crazy events of Stranger Things began to unfold. Great book. And I think there's more, too, so I'm going to read them as well. Next up, another Ratchet and Clank game fell. Ratchet and Clank feature A Crack in Time. So in this game, Dr. Nefarious is kind of the main enemy again, and he's or not again, because I guess it was, but he's back. And Clank, they're kind of split up at the start of the game. At the end of the last game, Clank got taken away by the little alien, the Zoni, and he discovered he has a higher purpose, and he's meant to utilize this clock, which is kind of a time. It keeps the universe's time, I guess, but it can be, kind of used as a time machine, but not really. But anyways, the universe depends on this clock to keep it running, or else chaos can descend. So its leader, the guy that controls the clock, has kind of gone missing, and so his little minion has been left behind, and he's the one who's initiating Clank into learning how to operate this clock and repair it and turn everything back to rights. In the meantime, Ratchet is off, and he's kind of missing Clank. He doesn't know where he's gone, and he meets this Lombax. I forget his name, General something, and this guy discovers that Ratchet is the son of his friend. This guy knew Ratchet's father back in the day, before all the Lombaxes disappeared and got sent away, and so he kind of looks out for Ratchet and teaches him some history of what went on, and teaches him some new abilities, and the two of them set off after Dr. Nefarious, and they learn of this clock and everything, and so this general, God, I can't remember his name. He kind of wants to use the clock to turn back time and bring Ratchet's parents back and set everything right with the Lombaxes. But the further they explore and push along trying to find Clank and the clock, the more Ratchet kind of starts to wonder about this guy's behavior. It seems a little erratic. It seems a little obsessive. And in the end, when they do discover the clock, Ratchet kind of has to stand up to him and say, you know what, you have to let the past lie. And that's when this guy turns on Ratchet, and then he has to kind of battle him before he has to end up battling Dr. Nefarious as well. So there's kind of two boss battles in the end. One that's expected, and one that's kind of slowly becomes expected over the game as this guy's behavior becomes more and more crazy. So another awesome game. Slight differences in the game, again, with the weapon systems and stuff, and a little different because Clank and Ratchet are split up. So you don't have Clank as your backpack that you can hover with your little helicopter thing. In this one, you have these hover boots. So it's, they find these little differences to install in each game that keeps it fresh, but still the same. Still the same vibe, still the same basic function, but just little things that keep it a little different from the game that preceded it, to keep things fresh, right? So another awesome installment in the Ratchet and Clank series. I really enjoyed it. So next up, another game I really enjoyed playing for the PS2, Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix. I've been putting this one off for a long time for some reason, but once I got into it recently, I just kept bang, 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 bang. I didn't like it as much as the original, I think, 2 games that I played on the GameCube for like the first 2, the Philosopher's Stone and the Chamber of Secrets. I found those ones were a lot more cartoony and a lot more easy to play and a lot easier to remember the layout of the castle for some reason. But this one was still really good. And like I said, the more I played it, the more I wanted to play it. So it's basically just the story of the Order of the Phoenix, where Harry's kind of left out to dry during the summer. Dementors attack him and Dudley. All the while, Ron, Hermione, and all the other kind of his friends are working together at Sirius's house to covertly undermine the Ministry of Magic and the measures they're taking, and find out what's going on with the Death Eaters and Voldemort and stuff like that. So Harry's brought into things at the end of the summer, and he's kind of bitter because he's like, you guys been here having fun, playing with each other all summer long. Well, I've been with the fucking Dursleys and getting attacked by Dementors and stuff like that. So they go back to school, and then Umbridge is installed as the headmaster after Harry and his friends form Dumbledore's army, and he teaches them how to do spells because they need to know how to do real world things with the darkness that's soon to be coming. But they're discovered, so that's why the Ministry installs Umbridge into the headmaster position, and Albus Dumbledore has to escape. And he totally says, no, they formed that army on my behalf, right? He covers for them. And so the rest of the game, you're kind of trying to undermine Umbridge and foil all the Ministry's plans, as well as ferret out Dumbledore, Voldemort, and try and stop the plan that him and his Death Eaters have going on, because they know they're up to something. So, and it all culminates in the Ministry of Magic when Voldemort returns, and him and Harry have to have a battle. Him and Dumbledore as well are in on the action. So the game has you can finish the story of the game pretty quickly, but it has so much extras, you know, objects you can find, tasks you could complete, areas to explore, that sort of thing. So which I kind of did as I went along. I would, if there was any extras, I would do them, and then I'd move on with the story. Just like, you know, when I play my Spider-Man on the PS4, you know, I always do the side missions first, because I like to complete as much of the game as possible to get my money's worth out of it. So this one, in the end, I completed about 65%, because there's so much of it that you can't complete until after the game's beaten, and it's like, but once the story's beaten, it's like, well, I don't really want to just go run around doing weird stuff, right? So, but I completed the game. It didn't take that long. It didn't take as long as I thought it would, but it was a lot of fun. And like I said, it was kind of addictive. I kind of wanted to play more and more the more I was into it, right? Next up, this game is just a masterpiece, and it's such an unexpected masterpiece, right? For the Nintendo Wii, it's Wii Ski. Kind of basic, kind of simple, kind of amazing. You take your character to Happy Ski Resort, and there's a bunch of hills, all named after different animals, and you basically just explore. You go down the runs, you try to set, you know, scores for each hill, and you unlock points by doing so, which unlocks more gear and stuff for you. And while you're out on the hills, you meet other people, other skiers, and they'll have different tasks for you. There's one lady that gives you trivia. One guy that he's a teacher, he loses his students all the time, you got to go out and find them. One little girl who's always losing her equipment, so you got to go find them for her. And then there's other skiers that challenge your abilities, so you have to learn how to do tricks and jump, moguls, turning, stopping, and one lady that has you deliver food and other objects for her. And again, each time you complete one of these, you get a point and you unlock more stuff, and your goal is to eventually, you know, complete all the tasks and get as high a rank as you can before the game is over. So there's not really a build-up of events that culminate in a grand finale or anything. It's just you go out, you explore, you complete all the events, and then you're kind of done. And so that seems kind of anticlimactic in a way, but it's not. It's just it's a super, super fun game. And like I said, unexpected, like a skiing game, right? Like, who would have thought it would be so fun? Now, the thing we really like about it is it allows you to use, there are pre-made characters in the game, or you can use your Miis. If you've created any Miis, you can use those in the game, which is hilarious, because back in the day when I first got my Wii, I went online and looked at all the different Miis people had created. So I've got Star Wars, Harry Potter, I got Jack Black and Kyle Gass, I got the 6 Friends in there. Like, we got so Weird Al, you know, like so many different, Wayne Campbell and Garth Algar from Wayne's World. Like, I created so many Wiis. I created as many as it could possibly hold. So each time we went out, we would pick 2 weird different Miis, right? And you can also take pictures. You can find photographers on the hills, and they'll take snapshots of you. Sometimes you're standing still, sometimes you're in an action shot, and you can save them to your album, right? So we had these weird pairs of famous, you know, kind of characters, right, that you'd be out on the hills with, and then you'd take these pictures. So at the end of the game, once we were done everything, you can go into your photo album and you can do play a slideshow. So it'll do a slideshow of all the pictures you took while you're out skiing. And it was just so funny to like revisit all the different pairs we had and the stupid pictures we took, right? It's just a cool little feature that just enhances the game even more. So if you like a fun family game that's just kind of chill and fun, this is it's a pure winner. It's pure gold. Last up, and I don't have a case for this because we watched it on Netflix, but a Netflix exclusive movie my wife told me about that I somehow did not know about, called Red Notice. Red Notice is a movie starring Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, Ryan Reynolds, and Gal Gadot. Like, can you get a better threesome, right? Like, I was like, how did I not fucking know about this movie? But anyways, The Rock stars as Jonathan Hartley, I think his name is. He's an FBI behavioral analyst kind of cop agent. Ryan Reynolds stars as Nolan Booth, a infamous art thief, and Gal Gadot stars as, I think her name was Sarah Davis or something like that, also known as the Bishop. So it starts off with a bit of a backstory about Cleopatra back in the day. She was gifted these 3 valuable ornamental eggs from some guy that wanted to marry her, Anthony something. Years and years later, hundreds of years later, thousands of years, I don't know. I can't remember how long ago Egypt was. 2 of these eggs were unearthed by a farmer, but the 3rd one was always still missing. So they're very valuable pieces, and so Hartley figures out that this Nolan Booth guy is going to try and rip off one of the eggs at an art exhibit in Rome. So him and an Interpol agent, I can't remember her name, are there to intercept him, but the theft has already been made, and Hartley uncovers it, but Nolan Booth is still at the scene, and Hartley notices him when they try and lock the place down, that he starts to bolt. So then it turns into this chase. Booth eventually gets away, but Hartley tracks him down at his hideout in Bali and takes him in. But during the transfer of the prisoner and the object back to the mainland, one of the kind of soldiers that are in on the operation is actually the Bishop in disguise, and she takes the egg and swaps it in a fake, and the Rock is kind of framed for it, right? So he goes to prison, and guess who he gets roomed up with in this crazy castle mountaintop prison out in Siberia or something is Nolan Booth, the guy he took in. So then they kind of have to become a team that are both trying to get out of jail, and the Rock wants to get his reputation back, obviously, and prove that he was framed, and Nolan Booth wants to become the #1 art thief and unthrone this Bishop who stole the egg. So the rest of the movie is them working together in an odd couple kind of way, with lots of quips and barbs and hilarity and stupidity as they break out of prison and then go on the lam and try and right everything, right, and deal with the Bishop. And so there's lots of twists and turns along the way. I don't want to say too much more, but it was poorly received by critics apparently, but it was one of the, I think, Netflix biggest movie premiere that they've had yet, or something like that. So obviously a lot of people were looking forward to it, and I'm assuming liked it a lot. I loved it. I thought it was great characters, great premise, and of course great actors to play these characters. So I highly recommend. I highly loved it. And yeah, that about sums everything up for now. So until next time, have a great work week. I'm off.